I'm going to discuss a pretty controversial relationship dynamic for Stranger Things 5. Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. It's Ty the TV guy here, and I'm back with a Stranger Things 5 theory/discussion video in which I'm going to be diving into the relationship controversy surrounding Eleven and Mike, or Mike and Will, and discuss which I think should happen and will happen for the final season. The commentary and theories surrounding this situation have spread like wildfire on social media in recent days, so I just wanted to address it in the best way I could and give my outlook on the situation. Before I get too far into it, make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel for further Stranger Things content as always. Alright, so to give a background into this, if you're not as deep into like the online communities for Stranger Things as others, usually relationships throughout the show are given nicknames, right? You know, they're referred to as certain things. Like Joyce and Hopper, for example, is called Jopper. Mike and Eleven, Mileven. Lucas and Max, Lumax, you know, kind of combining the names. I'm not sure if they do that for a lot of other TV shows, but the online community has taken these nicknames and ran with it for Stranger Things. And so there's a new one that has emerged, especially since season 4 when Will has come out as gay. Essentially, I mean, without directly saying it, the fans and basically everybody seems to know that it's the truth. So since he's basically come out, there have been many fans theorizing that Mike and Will would be the next relationship, that Will has feelings for Mike, which I actually believe that aspect of it. But, you know, the fact that Mike would reciprocate the feelings for Will would be the element of it in question, obviously. So I'm going to give my opinion on this kind of point blank and upfront first, and then I'm going to go through some examination of why I think this and explaining it. Just want to mention off the bat that, like, I have no problem with this in theory or in concept if it made sense within the storyline of the show, but personally, I don't think Will and Mike getting together makes sense within the storyline and giving the history of the show. So I'm not a fan of it happening, and I don't think it's going to. Once again, not for any other reasons other than it not fitting within the story. You know, maybe it would fit for Will's character, and I hope he can find happiness in this way, but I just don't think it makes sense, and I'm going to explain why here in a second. And before I explain why, let me acknowledge that I'll admit there's a lot of creative people online that are coming up with, you know, good ways to put this information together to make it seem as if it's basically a done deal that Will and Mike are going to get together as more than friends in season 5. And, you know, to be honest, some of these accounts and fan theories bring together some compelling cases, and I even agree with a lot of the stuff they say within the video. I just don't think the end result is going to be Will and Mike getting together. Stranger Things Talk is a TikTok account I want to shout out, kind of making content exclusively for Stranger Things. She has some really good theory videos and just opinions, and she knows the show really well, so I would suggest you guys checking out her content if you want more stuff like that. But she put a theory video together in which she's claiming she believes it's a pretty sure thing that Will and Mike are going to get together for season 5. So though I think she's very knowledgeable about the show, I don't agree with her take on this and some of her takeaways. I think they're jumping to conclusions a bit too quick or ignoring other important evidence, which I'm going to get into now. So let's take a step back for a second and look at the history of Eleven and Mike, the relationship that would have to break up in order for Will and Mike to get together, of course. So from the very start of the show, at the end of the very first episode, Mike, Lucas, and Dustin find Eleven in the woods, and from the very first second, Mike is the most caring for her. He seems kind of enamored with everything about her, clearly attracted to her from the start, clearly loving and caring for her from the start, more so than the others who it took a while for them to warm up to her, especially Lucas. But, you know, Mike loved her from the start. At multiple points throughout the first season, before they're dating, he calls her pretty voluntarily out of nowhere. So, you know, I think Mike's display of heterosexuality from the start appears to be as unambiguous as possible with how quickly he falls for Eleven. And by the end of season 1, they're basically de facto a relationship, even though, you know, they're pretty young kids at this point and still just met a few days ago. It feels like they have more than just a friendship looming, and Mike even gives her a little peck later on in the season before she disappears for a while. And then fast forward all the way through season 2, Mike is in agony not having Eleven around for almost a year. It takes them so long to find her, and eventually he gets her back, and it's like the best thing ever. They go to the snowball dance together, they kiss again. Once again, nothing here pointing to Mike not having that strong love for Eleven. So season 3 and seasons 4, I guess people call more aspects of the relationship into question, because yes, the writers decide to take things a little bit in a different direction for them, kind of showing some of the hiccups you can have in like a teenage relationship, especially, you know, with kids growing and learning about themselves and about each other. Of course, there's going to be some of these tough times in these younger relationships. And so Mike and Eleven experience some of these things in seasons 3 and 4. But to me, at no point does it seem like one doesn't absolutely really like/love the other. After Eleven says, "I dump your ass" outside the mall, Eleven still doesn't seem like too happy with it when Max is trying to get her to like move on and look at other pictures of hot boys and stuff. Eleven's like because she feels bad about how things went with Mike. Mike is just trying to plot and think about how to get her back. And then eventually you see so much raw emotion shown to each other in moments of great tension and possible despair later on in the season. And I think that's a sign of two people who are really drawn to each other and trying to love and take care of one another beyond friendship, no matter what. And then season 4, yes, once again, they get in that argument. Mike is having a hard time saying he loves her, but he gives a full explanation for why that was later on in the season when he finally unveils the "I love you" to Eleven in the moment where she needs it the most to garner strength in her fight against Vecna in the mind fight. He comes out and says, "I had a hard time writing or saying I love you for so long because I thought if I said I love you, it would make the day when I lost you hurt even worse." And so to me, that explanation makes sense, especially for people that age. It might be difficult to show emotion like that with, tremendous clarity or maturity. And so I think him admitting that was mature and also made sense within the context of their relationship. So I don't think a relationship having tension or tumultuous times necessarily is a sign that the characters aren't happy or don't, love each other in general, and that, Mike would potentially not even be into her as much as he would be into Will, which in my opinion, in actual episode evidence, has not been shown whatsoever so far. I know in season 4 we get a couple shots of Will kind of staring at Mike, and it's kind of, seeming like he's glaring at him and like gets caught a couple times and looks away real quick, like when they're digging the grave for that unknown hero agent man. Will's caught looking at Mike. Also, that speech that Will gives in the back of the van about Mike being the heart and about him being and feeling different. Jonathan seems to understand what's going on in that moment, that Will's kind of coming out, but Mike doesn't really seem to register the message the same way. It just kind of appreciates the words from Will. But still, given all this, yes, I think it's clear that Will shows emotion like that toward Mike, but I think it's one-sided. I do not think Mike has reciprocated that, and I think there will be a breaking point in season 5, to be clear. I do think this will be addressed, right? I don't think it's just going to vanish and not going to be talked about one bit. I just don't think the end result is going to be Mike leaving Eleven for Will. So that's kind of the history of Mike and Eleven's relationship, and like I said, from what we've actually seen on screen, not any of these leaked pictures for season 5, which I'll get into in a minute, and not any other type of speculation or fan desires, I guess I could say. To me, there's no hard evidence that Mike would want to have a relationship with Will beyond a friendship. To me, that just hasn't been shown whatsoever. And so I know a lot of people for Byler are going to point to, photos and little clips from the, season 5 that have been teased so far and point to that as evidence, such as numerous pictures of Mike and Eleven together. And people are interpreting that as, breakup scenes or scenes where they're just supporting each other as friends. And once again, to me, that's jumping to really far conclusions that just have really no grounding. I don't know how those scenes can just be misconstrued as, well, Mike and Eleven have to be breaking up here. It definitely can't just be a conversation between the two. To me, that's the much more logical explanation. Maybe having a heart-to-heart conversation before Eleven has to leave the group and go train or go on the side mission with Hopper. Maybe they're just having a good conversation, a little bit of downtime in the season. Even though things are going to be hectic, I think we're still going to get these interpersonal moments between the characters of the show. And I just think with this situation, a lot of fans are looking at it in a way where they're trying to handpick the information that could slightly hint to Will and Mike getting together, rather than acknowledging the vast and overwhelming majority of the information we already have from actually, seasons and episodes of evidence that Mike and Eleven are really into each other, have loved each other since first sight, and I think should and will continue to be an endgame couple in this show. That is, if one of them doesn't bite the dust. So for instance, here's a couple of the pictures of Mike and Eleven together in season 5. To me, looks like normal couple pictures. Here we see Eleven caressing Mike's face. Here we see them talking at a sunset. I know a lot of people have A theory that this is like the sunset of their relationship. It's supposed to be metaphoric in that way. I guess. I mean, I guess it's possible. And then, we see them hugging here. People say, oh, that's just like them hugging as friends now. Like they're proud of each other for, I don't know. Like, guys, these are multiple pieces of footage we're getting with them together. And, fans are still taking that and running with it to mean something that, in my opinion, it doesn't mean. But soon enough, we're going to see here, guys. I mean, we got a couple more months, and then we will see, if this bold decision by the Duffer Brothers to separate a couple that's been together the whole show could come to fruition. I know a lot of the fans are wanting it, and it would be quite interesting, I'll say that, but I just don't see it being the direction they go, just given how much time and effort they've put into building up the couple of Mike and Eleven to really be the quintessential and main couple of this show. Whether you like them and think they're the best at this point, maybe they're not the best for each other for where they're at, but Mike did just say I love you. They did just have that big moment at the end of season 4, seemingly making them just as strong as ever. And I know other couples, even to me, like I like Lucas and Max better. I like Joyce and Hopper better. That's just a couple, for example. I know they're not maybe the most in favor couple in the show, but I still think all in all, they're the most focused on and most important couple in the show. So yeah, that's just my take on it, guys. I know that a lot of people want this to happen, and I don't have a problem with it in principle, obviously, but I just think for the storyline of the show, for what's happened, and given the lack of actual evidence, once again, I'm shouting out this TikTok account again, Stranger Things Talk especially, but she's not the only one. I mean, hundreds of fans are putting together really good theories and kind of like putting together clips and stuff that could point toward Mike actually being gay, showing, saying to Will earlier in the show, it's not my fault you don't like girls, him internalizing, that homosexuality maybe, that's what people argue with a scene like that. And then there's a bunch of other clips of them looking at each other and of Mike and Eleven supposedly, going to be hitting a wall in this final season. Guys, I just think it's reaching personally, and I think Mike and Eleven will be an endgame couple. That is my take. If you want Byler to happen, I respect it, and I hope for your rooting interest it does happen in this final season. I honestly don't care necessarily like who ends up winning in this or whatever. I just want it to be well written, and to me at this point, it would kind of discard a lot of what we built up with this main relationship in the show that we got all throughout the first 4 seasons. So I wouldn't really understand it from that perspective. I understand from Will's perspective, he might be looking for that type of relationship, but I don't see Mike reciprocating it. They've been putting so much effort into Mike and Eleven's relationship throughout the duration of the show. To throw that all away now for them to just be friends the last couple episodes in favor of Will and Mike getting together when they've been friends the entire show, to me that would almost feel weird. I don't know. And also, not trying to be controversial here or tear down anyone who wants this to happen. I totally understand, and for your sake, once again, I hope it does, but I just personally don't think it makes sense and don't think it's going to happen. That's my personal take. But you guys can let me know why you think this is going to happen in the comments. If you're Team 11, Team Byler. Once again, I'm not super into the Stranger Things relationship culture of everything where I'm oh, let's go Mileven necessarily. I'm not cheering them on, but I just evaluating the story at face value and about what makes sense. And for my favorite show, I want everything to wrap up appropriately. I want nothing to feel forced. But I will say I do think there will be some resolution to that situation with Mike in this final season. I think they might have a discussion about it. But yeah, like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to my channel for more Stranger Things content as we lead up to the final season. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.